just saying, I don't have anything against the company.
Thanks for joining Questionable Authority for this final and long overdue part 3 of this Monsanto series. You guys have been asking about it and displayed great patience. I know it's been a while since parts 1 and 2. If you want to review that content, links are in the description. Before I dive into this last installment, I'll explain part of the reason for my delay. I took this footage and all of the footage of these Monsanto locations back in February. I was using different cameras and trying to figure out which setup I liked the most. The one I used for this audit had an external mic. Like a dope for most of the audit, I left the mic turned off. Consequently, I didn't catch the audio for most of my interaction with the Monsanto employee who came out to intimidate me. Since this was my third and final facility of the day, my action cam ran out of battery. What I'm trying to say is I screwed up and I don't have audio from that part. The footage of the encounter is horrible. I wasn't paying attention, thinking my action cam was recording the whole thing. Luckily, I did remember to turn on my audio for the last interaction with the employee. I was fairly new along in this process at this point, so please go easy on me for my camera work. After a lot of thought about where to go with this final part of these Monsanto audits, I finally came up with a plan. There's so much disturbing content to go through about Monsanto, I could go on forever it seems. After lots of deliberation, I decided to focus on two aspects based on recent events. I will be discussing a regional issue. I believe this issue is the reason Monsanto started to really improve its facilities in the region over the last 15 or so years. Then I will get into the recent Bayer takeover of Monsanto. This is important because of the booming pot industry. With Washington being one of the first two states to allow full legalization, the cannabis industry has exploded. As more states are added to the list for both full legalization and legalizing for medicinal purposes, the industry is only going to grow, especially as more and more research is being done on the medicinal side. For those who don't know, agriculture is a very large industry in Washington state. The bulk of this agriculture is done in central or eastern Washington, east of the Columbia River. This area is in what is known as the rain shadow of the Cascade Mountains. Water is scarce in this region. Groundwater is from a finite aquifer that was filled with water tens of thousands of years ago during the massive floods of Glacial Lake Missoula. Look that one up sometime if you want to understand the raw power of nature and our insignificance in this world. Finite means this aquifer has no real means of recharging, save another ice age to create a massive flooding event in this region again. Farmers who came to this area always had eyes on the mighty Columbia River, dreaming of how they could someday utilize the massive amounts of water carried downstream from hundreds of miles of mountain snow melt-off from the north and east. During the late stages of constructing the Cooley Dam, Congress authorized the Columbia Basin Project, and after World War II began development of the project, which was to serve over 1 million acres of farmland. 65,000 horsepower pumps were installed to pump water up to Banks Lake. Since then, a total of 12 pumps have been installed. Each one of these pumps can pump 1,600 cubic feet per second up the hill from the Columbia River to Banks Lake. Then a series of canals and reservoirs takes the water to around 679,000 acres of farmland. Before these canals were built, most of this land could really only sustain wheat without tapping the aquifer. This was because of the lack of water. With water came the ability to grow more profitable and diverse crops like corn, potatoes, soy, onions, and more. The problem is the current canal system only serves about 65% of the over 1 million acres Congress authorized for the project. There's one entire canal and part of another that never got completed. Farmers in the area were sold on the idea they would eventually get water from the river. They drilled wells as a temporary way to get water. Those wells have since dried up or are drying up, and the only way to get water now is to go very deep, which can be cost prohibitive. With the aquifer draining to dangerously low levels, new talks of finishing the unfinished canals have come to light. A new sense of urgency is creating private farmers to form partnerships and find ways to finish the canals and get water to the hurting farms. Some work on this has already started. It's very controversial and hard because not all these farmers agree on how it should operate. On top of that, they still have to work out an agreement with the government to tie into existing infrastructure. All this means big money for companies like Monsanto. By the time most of these farms get the water they need from these canals and get the new equipment set up to deliver it to the fields, they are likely to be pretty cash-strapped. These Monsanto facilities are all located right on the edge of the area the canals currently serve. When the rest of the canals are finished, they are conveniently located close to a bunch of new irrigated farmland. That land is owned by those cash-strapped farmers who just paid to finish the canals and upgrade equipment, and more than likely will be looking for great deals on all the new crops available for them to grow. Monsanto is known for offering great deals to farmers in the initial years of contracts to draw them in, giving massive rebates and incentives to farmers who sign up as contracted growers for Monsanto. By the way, a quick side note, Monsanto is now Bayer Crop Science, a move after the merger to get rid of the hated Monsanto name. For this video, I will continue to refer to this evil entity as Monsanto. Just remember, they are one and the same. Another fear I have, the corn research facility featured in part 2 has canals running along the front and back edge of the entire property. I guess the history of Monsanto, coupled with the sordid past of Bayer, doesn't make me feel comfortable that some of the chemicals used in their crops that kill others, and not Monsanto crops, might leak or get dumped into these canals. Look, I know it may seem far-fetched, but these two companies have proven they care for little else than profits. If that happened, it would devastate any farmers downstream not using Monsanto crops and likely force the farmers into using them. All because of an accident. Again, let me reiterate, that isn't hypothetical. Along with positioning themselves to really be in control of one of the major industries in this area, these facilities are also located near a rail line that is slated for major improvements as agriculture in the area grows because of the increase in irrigated land. All three of the facilities covered in this series are right along that corridor that is set aside for major development. It's almost like Monsanto seemed to know what might be happening in the future of this heavy agricultural region and got in before land prices started to go up. Now to my second topic concerning Monsanto in this video. As I mentioned in part 1, the German pharmaceutical company Bayer recently purchased Monsanto. This buyout was just recently approved by the EU, finalizing the deal. These two companies have a very evil history, and now they are one. One a pharmaceutical giant, one an agritech company holding the patent for plants that sterilize surrounding plants as they pollinate. I discussed this briefly in part 2 of this series. It's called Terminator technology. Basically, the pollen from the Terminator plant sterilizes whatever plant it pollinates, so no seeds are produced. Now, it's not only a company like Monsanto in charge of that, but add Bayer and its sordid past to the mix? Yeah, I don't like this outcome. It's not looking good. I'll show you some clips from a documentary on this merger between Bayer and Monsanto in a minute. First, since Washington State was one of the first 2 to fully legalize cannabis, I want to get into what is going on with the new Bayer crop science, aka Monsanto, and this quickly emerging industry. Medicinal uses for cannabis are becoming more widely accepted, and more states are passing laws to at least allow cannabis for medicinal purposes. These two corporate giants, now combined as one, seem to have a plan for control of not only the industry, but the plant. Think of it from Bayer's perspective. Here is a plant that people can grow on their own and help them eliminate part of the addiction to prescription drugs our society has. This is bad news for pharmaceutical companies. People can't be allowed to grow their own medicine. That cuts into the profit margin. So what's the alternative? Purchase an agriculture company that has the ability to develop genetically modified plants and then patent them so they are in control of the plant in every aspect. Guess what, folks? It's happening. According to Big Bugs magazine, Monsanto and Scotts Miracle-Gro have a deep business partnership. Hawthorne, which is a front group for Scotts, has already purchased major cannabis growing companies like General Hydroponics, Botanicare, and Gavita, with other major hydroponics companies reporting buyout attempts by Hawthorne. Just do a search on DuckDuckGo, who doesn't filter results or track your searches like Google. Type in Bayer and Monsanto taking pot. Press enter and you'll have more than a few nights worth of reading. Again, I will bring up the Terminator technology Monsanto promised not to use. Keep in mind, Bayer has made no such promise. Imagine if Bayer and Monsanto develop a GMO cannabis plant and removed all of the medicinal properties, then added the Terminator technology to that. They could effectively eliminate this plant that competes with their prescription drugs, and at the same time create one that only has the psychedelic properties, allowing them to keep profiting from their addictive prescriptions and now profit off a drug solely designed for the recreational aspect. Next, I want to show you some clips from a great documentary done by the Corbett Report. I suggest you go watch his entire video on the purchase of Monsanto by Bayer. It is really informative and covers the evil history of both companies in great detail. I've put a link to the channel and the video in the description. Here's a few clips from the video that I feel are really important.
Hello. Today I'm happy to announce that this Thursday Bayer will complete the acquisition of Monsanto. This is good news for several reasons. It's first of all good news for our customers, the farmers around the world, no matter what type of agriculture.
If you had told someone 2 decades ago that by 2018 the company that commercialized chemical warfare and the company that commercialized Agent Orange were going to team up to control a quarter of the world's food supply, chances are you would have been labeled a loony. Unless your name was Robert P. Shapiro. He was CEO of Monsanto from 1995 to 2000, and in 1999 he told Businessweek that the company's goal was to wed 3 of the largest industries in the world, agriculture, food, and health, that now operate as separate businesses. But there are a set of changes that will lead to their integration. With this month's announcement that Bayer had completed its $63 billion acquisition of Monsanto, it is hard to deny that Shapiro's vision has been realized. Too bad for all of us. That vision is a nightmare. Even worse, Monsanto has, thanks to a revolving door with the highest levels of the US government, been not just evil, but extraordinarily effective in spreading its evil seed around the world. That revolving door has seen literally dozens of top Monsanto executives drift in and out of the US government agencies that, laughably, are said to regulate the agrochemical business, including Dennis DeConcini, the former US Senator who now acts as legislative consultant for Monsanto, Mickey Cantor, the Commerce Secretary under President Clinton who also served on Monsanto's board of directors, Michael Taylor, Obama's deputy FDA commissioner who had previously served as Monsanto's vice president for public policy, Linda Fisher, who was appointed deputy administrator of the EPA in 2001, fresh off a 5-year stint as Monsanto's vice president of government and public affairs, and U.S. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, who served as a corporate lawyer for Monsanto in the 1970s. These officials have helped smooth the way for Monsanto to achieve a number of key corporate objectives, including the passage of the infamous Monsanto Protection Act in 2013.
And then we're going to have this ethical problem that's plagued both of these corporations for decades. Let's start with Monsanto. This is a company that produced Agent Orange, which resulted in one of the largest human-induced health epidemics in modern history. They made dioxin, they created and distributed PCBs across the planet, and now pending litigation against them for Roundup is right there. Looking at their rap sheet would scare the heck out of anybody with a brain. They're in the business, actually, really, when you drill down to it, it looks more like a cancer sponsor business than anything. They've been hit for false advertising and bribing public officials, then moved to Bayer. So we got Bayer and we got Monsanto. Moved to Bayer. This is a company that's joined at the hip with the Nazis during World War II. They produced a clotting agent for hemophiliacs in 1980s called Factor VIII. This blood clotting agent was tainted with HIV, and then after the government told them they couldn't sell it here, they shipped it all over the world, infecting people all over the world. That's the company. That's just part of the Bayer story. Right now, they're facing lawsuits over products like Yaz, Xarelto, Essure, Cipro.
This is my first interaction with the Monsanto employee. Again, my mic was turned off and I thought my action cam was on, so I wasn't paying attention to the camera. To give you an idea of what happened, this guy came out, seemed nervous, and like he was trying to intimidate me into leaving. I barely even got out a hi before he was asking me my name and who I was with. I told him I wouldn't give him my name and I was independent. He didn't seem to like that answer and told me he was going to drive down the road where I had parked and get my license plate number. I let that go, knowing he would never get my license plate number. In an effort to set his mind at ease, though, I explained I didn't know much about Monsanto, but had researched the facilities in the area. I even told him how I read about the process they use in the research facility and that it seemed really neat. After a brief chat about that, he seemed a little less nervous and drove off. Thinking he was okay and not going to try to follow me or anything, I just carried on with my filming. As you will soon see, he was not put at ease, and I had to set him straight in a less cordial manner.
So apparently most of what I was saying, you probably couldn't hear. You probably couldn't hear anything what this guy said. Anyways, this guy here just came out and asked me some questions. Thinks he's going to come down here and see what car I'm driving in. I don't know if he called the cops. We'll find out. I'm going to talk to him again. Hey, I was just going to let you know, I didn't drive here. You're not going to get my license plate, so that's fine with me. And you can call the cops. I'm not doing anything wrong. I've got to talk to cops before I do this. I do it all the time. So you're not making your company look any better by doing this. I'm not telling you. I got nothing against your company.
You can shut that off if you like.
I know I can. I know what I can do. But I'm just saying, I don't have anything against the company. I was asked to come out and get some footage. But what I'm saying is, the way you're reacting, by just me out here taking pictures of your facility that anyone can see when they drive by, doesn't help your image at all. So I'm just letting you know that I hire people to drop me off because I know how companies like, I'm not saying you personally, I know how companies like Monsanto treat people like me. So I would never drive a personal vehicle around here. So I hire people out, people will drop me off here. You can get all the information you want, but just maybe I didn't have a hard time. You took my picture, I took yours, that's fine, I have no problem with that, man. But I'm just out here taking pictures, doing perfectly legal activity, and no one's making your company look bad. I understand you're curious, but once you come out to see I'm taking pictures, then you're trying to follow me and get my license plate, that's out of line, man. I'm not doing anything wrong. If the cops come out, they'll tell you I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just in public taking pictures. So, you have a good day.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and share it with everyone you know. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and follow us on Twitter for more questionable authority insight. Don't forget to always film the police, arm yourself with knowledge, and of course, question everything.